Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Champions of Nexum, and it's from the company Board Legends. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I encourage you to quickly go to the official Kickstarter project page because there's only a few days left in the campaign. You can do that by following the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Those links will take you to the page. You can find out more information than I could possibly tell you here, and hopefully you will consider backing the project. There may be opportunities for you to get involved with the project after the campaign ends as well. So again, even if you're seeing this video a little bit late, go to that page and find out more information. Now, Champions of Nexum is a competitive team-based battle arena game, just like digital MOBA games, where you and the other players you and the opposing team take control of teams of champions, like these really powerful fantasy warriors that are battling it out against each other on opposite sides of the board. You're trying to protect your castle, and so it's kind of a tower defense thing too as well. So you got your castle, your garrisons, your towers in front of that, and you are trying to protect your own, but also break through your opponent's defenses in order to get to their castle and try to completely wreck it, and therefore, as is the goal, win the game. But of course, it's a little bit more complicated than that. There are quests you can go on, monsters you can defeat. You have to slowly wear down your opponent's defenses, which is not easy to do. So it's not just as simple as just running up there and smashing their castle. And of course, there are plenty of characters to play as with all kinds of different special abilities. But before we go any further, let me go ahead and give you a quick look at how the game is played with a prototype copy of the game. So this version that I have actually looks very final, so it's very close, but of course, because it is just a preview copy, there will be changes in the final version, things like component quality and things like that, although even the preliminary miniatures that I have for my copy, as you can tell, are very high quality, which means that the final ones are going to be even more high quality, things like that. We'll take a look at this quick run through of that, and I will mention here, there was one little mistake that I made in the preview section that I do want to reference here, and that's that there are actually little colored markers that you can put underneath your champions' figures to remind yourselves and the other players which champions are from which team. I don't know why. I just forgot to put them on in the preview section. You can even see them in the video, so I do apologize for that. But I don't think it should interfere with the actual rules explanation that much. But just know that there is that in the game. But in any event, after this, we will come back and discuss it further. Champions of Nexum is a competitive, team-based battle arena and tower defense game for 2 to 6 players, or for 1 player in the special solo mode. 2 teams of players representing the factions House Ragnar, red, and House Andin, blue, battle it out with their respective champions in an attempt to rip through the enemy guard towers and garrisons and destroy their castle. But this is easier said than done. Along the way to the enemy forces, you'll go on quests, slay monsters, and duel the enemy champions. The better you do with these tasks, the more victory points you get, and the easier it will be to destroy the enemy castle. Whoever can do that first will end the game and be the winner. Start the setup by laying out the game map. Each team will sit opposite each other on each side of the map with their castle in the corner and paths branching out from it. Garrison figures will be placed in the 3 spots in front of each of the castles, and 2 guard towers placed on their spots on each path in front of those garrisons, for a total of 6. Figures for rat monsters will also be placed on their indicated space, 1 on each side of the map. 4 different decks of cards will be shuffled and placed near the map. Victory point markers, 1 for each faction, are placed on the starting space of the victory track, and a separate marker is placed on the first spot of the time track. Make stocks of the 4 different types of crystals, along with energy point tokens and health tokens nearby. Give each team a set of combat dice and a 10-sided die. Each team will then roll that d10. Whoever gets the higher number will choose to either pick their team's champions first or take the first turn of the game. After that's decided, the team members for each team will decide the order in which they act when their team's turn comes up. When your team is deciding on champions, you'll take all the champion cards, decide, then place them in front of each player before handing them off to the other team. Depending on the number of players, 1 player may have to control more than 1 champion. Champions have 4 stats: attack, defense, damage, and hit points. They also have an active special skill that you must activate to use when the condition is met, indicated by a filled-in circle, and a passive that always activates on its own when the condition is met, indicated by an empty circle. Take health tokens equal to your hit points and place them near your character. Take the corresponding miniatures for each champion and place them on your starting space, which is your castle. Draw 3 cards from the artifact deck and place them face up in their indicated spaces. Artifacts are powerful items you can equip to your champion. They will modify that champion's stats for as long as you have it, but you may choose to discard it for a powerful effect, like rerolling dice, taking extra actions, avoiding negative effects, etc. Each champion is limited to equipping 3 artifacts at one time. And finally, the last part of the setup is shuffling your team's quest deck and flipping a quest card to start. One quest card is always active. If an active quest card is ever removed for any reason, a new one is immediately flipped. Now, begin the game. Every round of the game has 2 broad phases. First, the Champions phase, and second, the Upkeep phase. During the Champions phase, one player from the starting team will take their turn, in the order that you decided on earlier. Then one player from the opposing team will take their turn, and so on and so forth until every champion on both teams has had a turn, going back and forth. At the beginning of a champion's turn, you must choose a stance, either adventure or attack. The adventure stance means you want to explore the map and or attempt the final victory action. The attack stance means you want to duel an enemy champion and or lay siege to an enemy garrison. In addition to the 1 or 2 actions the active champion may choose to use, he may also choose to use each base action, of which there are 5. First is movement. You simply move your figure 1 or 2 spaces in any direction that is connected by a path. You can't move through enemy guard towers, however. Next is hunting. If the champion is sharing a space with a monster and has advantage, which is to say there are more of your team's champions in the space than the opposing team's champions, even if it's just 1, they can try and slay it. Roll a d10 and compare it against the strength of the monster as indicated on the monster card. If you meet or beat the number, you gain the reward, which depends entirely on the strength of the monster, anywhere from energy tokens as a reward, to crystals, to artifacts, or even victory points for the most powerful monsters, the behemoth and the dragon. Another base action is purchasing a spell. Discard 4 energy tokens and draw a spell card. If you do it on one of the place of power spaces on the map, you can pay 1 less energy to do so, and you can do this as many times as you like. Spells give you powerful one-time effects like boosting your combat abilities or moving you or your teammates around the map, and all spells give you the choice to use one of 2 different effects. Yet another base action is exchanging crystals between allied champions in the same space. No other type of token or card may be exchanged in this way. The last type of base action is completing a quest. Every card has a main quest and a side quest. The main quest is split into 2 parts, each of which any champion on your side can attempt to complete at any time. Each part involves gaining a particular color of crystal and delivering it to a specific space on the board. Each completed part gets you 1 victory point, and completing both parts gets you the main reward, either a face-up artifact from the board or a spell card drawn from the deck. Then the quest is discarded. Before that, you may also attempt to finish the quest card's side quest, which is much more situational, like doing damage in a specific way, defeating a specific monster, etc. And you can only get tokens, buffs, or items from this, but never victory points. If you went into Adventure Stance at the beginning of the turn, you have 2 additional actions you can take. Exploring can only happen if you have advantage, and you will draw a card from either the jungle or path decks, depending on the symbols on the circular path space you're currently on. Jungle cards will let you either roll a die or make a choice to try and get 1 or more crystals, with negative consequences sometimes resulting. The color of crystal you get depends on the color of the jungle space you're on, so if you need a specific color of crystal, you should go for that space. Path cards, on the other hand, may get you energy tokens or some other minor effects, but usually your choices on these cards are both good and can't result in negative consequences, but remember, you can't get crystals this way. The other action you can take for adventuring is the victory action, which is to win the entire game. But first, let me explain what victory points actually do. Every time you gain a point, your token moves up the track and you get to destroy one of the enemy guard towers closest to the center of the map. When enough towers have been destroyed to get you up to one of the 3 spaces in front of the castle, you can attempt to smash it, but this is very difficult. You must clear out the garrison in that space first, which we'll get to in a minute, and then you must have advantage there. Then you must roll a d10 and try to meet or beat the difficulty rating your victory token currently resides on. At the earliest stage, it is impossible to do this alone since you need a 15 or more. But other allied champions in your space can assist you, which means that they also roll d10s and add it to your total. The more victory points you get and towers that you smash, the easier it gets to attempt this check to the point where you can eventually try and do it yourself. If you instead put yourself in the attack stance, you have two options. First, you can lay siege to a garrison, as I mentioned before. If you have advantage in a garrison space, you can roll a d10 and try to get higher than 6 to remove the garrison. Allies can assist you and add their die roll to yours. The other attack option is to duel with an enemy champion in your space. Roll 1 combat die for every point of your attack value and every ally in your space. The defender does the same, but uses their defense value. Either player can spend energy tokens to re-roll each of their dice. If the total number of successes meets or beats the defender's total, the attack is successful and damage will occur based on the attacker's damage value and the number of damage faces that came up. They also get to take either 1 crystal or 1 energy token from their foe, and take energy tokens for every energy face that came up on the dice. Not only that, but defeating an enemy champion gets you 2 victory points, which is huge. But if the attack failed, not only does the defender not suffer damage, the attacker takes damage for every damage symbol that came up, and the defender takes energy for every energy face that came up. A champion whose hit points drop to 0 is defeated and returned laying down to the castle. They will lose their next turn, but on the turn after that, they will stand back up with all of their hit points restored, which happens whenever you start on your own castle. There's also an inn in the center of the board, and if your champion is there, they can heal 1 hit point per energy that you spend. After all of that, there's still one more thing to talk about, and that's the upkeep phase. When every player on both teams is taking a turn in a round, move the marker forward 1 space clockwise on the time track and give every player 1 energy token. Each space on the track will add the indicated monster figures to the board in the spaces marked for them. In addition, there will be some kind of universal bonus for all champions. It might be 1 additional space of movement, extra healing, a bonus to specific type of die rolls, etc. Then start a new round with the same turn order. Keep playing like this until one team finally manages to destroy the enemy castle. That is Champions of Nexum. Well, as you can tell, and I really can't stress this enough, the fact that this game is still in technically prototype version, and yet the prototype that I have is such a high quality should give you an indication of what the final product is going to look like as far as the miniature quality, the artwork quality, that the very beautiful expansive map, which doesn't have like a ton of spaces on it, but it looks like this grandiose like fantasy realm, which is I'm sure was intentional. And just the quality of the components and all these different things, which are going to look even better in the final version. I really hope that got through with the preview section here. But more than that, this is a battle arena game, and I have played games similar to this in the past. Some of them actually tend to go towards really laying on the complicated rule sets. And that's okay if that's what you're into. If you just want to have like incredibly detailed, precise, strategic gameplay. And I don't mean to say that Champions of Nexum doesn't have that, but what I thought was very interesting is how accessible the game is if you want to play a game that isn't going to last for 6 hours and isn't going to require an hour of that to be rules explanation. And that's how Champions lays it out, is that you can easily get the concept of the game across to the players. And as you play, sort of learn all of the more difficult and intricate rules of it. But then, very quickly, by not even the halfway point of your first game, you're going to be like, okay, I get the rhythm of this game. I understand what I'm supposed to do and how we're going to accomplish it. And yet, despite how straightforward the rule set is, there's so many things that you can do in this game to get to your goal. Your goal is to smash that castle, but how are you going to do that? Well, there's lots of ways to get victory points. If you really want to, you can duel your opponent's champions. That's a risky thing because, while attacking gives you all the momentum and you're the one that can get victory points from winning, having your champion get sent back to your castle to heal and have them off the board is dangerous. That's putting your defenses at risk and giving your opponents an opening to get through. And one of the things you can do in this game is assist your other champions, the other players with their champions, and if you take yourself out of commission by doing a risky, bold move, that's bad. You know, and sometimes just fighting the monsters, even though the monsters are sort of like NPCs on the board in a sense, some of them are really deadly and dangerous if you fail your die roll. So again, helping each other is very important, but at a certain point you do need to risk, because this is a bit of a race. Your opponents, even if your opponents decide to play more passively than you by not going for your champions or maybe not even fighting that many monsters, they can still be mowing through quests as quickly as possible, exploring the jungle paths, exploring the paths, things like that, and really racing through that victory point track. And even though it may seem like, oh, they've barely made a move against us, if they can race up that victory point track and get it to the point where they have a clear path to your castle because they've destroyed enough towers, and they've destroyed enough towers so that the difficulty rating of the victory roll they have to make is very low, that's an alarm. That's very, very bad. And suddenly you're on the defensive. So there's a lot of different things, like I said, things you can do, quests, monsters, battling the opponents directly, and so on. And you have to juggle these things while keeping track of the time track and how those monsters are coming out, how the victory points are going up, and how much further ahead your opponent is or how far ahead you are. And yet, nothing is overly complicated. You have your champion with a couple of different abilities and could maybe get artifacts and spells, but it's very straightforward as to what you do. It's just a matter, at that point it becomes tactical. How do I move on the map? Where do I go? Where am I most needed? Where can I do the most good? How much do I risk? How much do I play it safe? How much do I defend? How much do I attack? That seems like a lot, but when everyone's got their role and you've got the right team, and that's where, again, it comes to the decision making. Do you want to go first? Do you want to make sure you have a good team? That type of thing. When everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, then, the game really hums along, and it doesn't feel overwhelming as far as the rule set or the strategy involved, because you're all kind of working together, and that's why this game definitely works best as a team game. But there is a special solo mode as well, which I didn't go over in this preview, which you can find out more information on the website. So, again, like I said, there's not much time left in the campaign. If this sounds like it is something you're interested in, or your group's interested in, or a friend is interested in, don't take my word for any of it. Go to the official Kickstarter project page and find out more information. There will be a link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video on the webpage. Go there, and hopefully you will consider backing the project. That is Champions of Nexum from Board Legends. Get it? My name is Nick. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, for supporting our sponsors. Take care.